you to amazing people like you who are doing great things in the world that I think you should know about. Today is the second Saturday of the month, which means it's time for Moving Medicine Forward with Dr. Michael Klaper and Dr. Zach Burns. And today they're going to answer your questions. Please welcome them both to the show. Klaper and Burns, a new comedy group.
Great to be here.
Welcome, everybody.
Yeah. Got to put the humor back in medicine, right?
Absolutely. Got to have a few laughs along the way. It's not bad news.
Well, they
Yes,
say laughter is the best medicine anyway.
it is. Absolutely. People have said that for years, for ages. I saw a quote from Montaigne that a good laugh and a good night's sleep are the best medicine any doctor could prescribe. And,
Yeah.
true.
Sometimes a few doctors will show up in my stand-up comedy class and they're hilarious.
Yeah, there's a lot of fun. I've been thinking of doing a stand-up medical routine. I bet I could have a lot of fun doing it.
Oh, I would love for you to be in my class. I've had some of your well-known colleagues in there, and they don't always take it to perform, just to kind of,
Sure.
have a little outlet. So anything new in medicine, you guys?
Dr. Burns,
Just
you're
to
on
add to
the front
that,
lines. Anything exciting?
I find that a lot of my patients with terminal illness, maybe they have cancer, there's something else that's really serious, but when they bring humor into it and they're self-deprecating and they have a good attitude and all this, it makes such a difference. And I see them just navigating the appointments and the tumult of this situation. I see them just having a better experience. And so it's amazing. I mean, I commend them for having that ability to stay light on their feet and to bring humor into their lives and appointments. But I think we can, as doctors, we can help facilitate that too.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Wait, wasn't there a movie, was it called Patch Adams? Wasn't there like a movie about a doctor that was really funny?
There
Yeah.
is. Yes. In fact, I knew Patch. He's still alive. I've met him several times at various events. What a beautiful spirit and what a brave man he is on many levels. And yes, he knows that he wears a big red nose and makes the kids laugh with his antics. And we need that. It helped end the Cold War. He led lots of medical doctors as well as just high school students across the Iron Curtain to meet their colleagues on the other side. And again, laughter and hugs and red noses goes a long way to help
He
that.
had a revolutionary approach, really. He was in med school a while ago, and it was very traditional and serious, and coat and tie with their and what he did is he said, this isn't really working. People don't feel better this way. They want to be loved and taken care of, and so he'd sit at the foot of someone's bed and rub their feet and crack jokes, and it was totally revolutionary. And what's funny is the way that I revered Dr. Klaper in medical school before I met him. My roommate, who's now a psychiatry resident, he had the same kind of thing with Patch Adams where he wanted to emulate him, and he wrote him a letter which Patch responded to, and so we had that parallel thing going on. But I think Patch is still doing some great work.
So cool.
We need more patches on our genes. Absolutely.
So you're going to take questions from the live audience today?
We are, and we encourage people who have those questions they've been carrying around for years. Yeah, I always wanted to ask a doctor XYZ. Well, this is your chance. So write them into AJ, and we'll deal with them as they come in. But before we start, I'd like to talk to you in general about questions from the patient's point of view, how the doctor deals with them and the import of these questions, and how important they are. When you go to see a physician, you got to keep the dynamics in mind. The physician is working for you, not the other way around. And it's easy to feel intimidated, and the doctor's rushed. He's got an office full of patients. You don't want to take much time, but you're there for something very important. You got a pain, you got a lump, something that may change your life, and you are entitled to that doctor's full attention and to get your questions answered. And so understand that when you walk through the door, the doctor's there to serve you. And Questions are important. And when you walk out of the doctor's office, you at least want to have had your questions answered. And it's okay to come in with no more than 3 important questions. Don't come in with 25 questions that you expect to get answered all in a 10-minute interview. But at least 3 important questions. You're entitled to that. And absolutely write it down. I love when patients pull out a list. So they avoid that dreadful sensation. You walk out of the office and you say, "Oh, I forgot to ask her this XYZ." You want those questions answered. So absolutely don't be shy to write down those questions, those 3 questions that you want answers to. And that it's an okay thing to do and very appropriate. And finally, speaking of questions, another place where people can feel intimidated and not get their 50 cents worth out of that doctor's appointment is when you're sitting in the doctor's office, especially if you've been referred to a specialist and you're sitting in front of a famous, powerful surgeon or an oncologist or an orthopedist, etc. Your life is in their hands, literally. They're planning some type of therapy or whatever. And it's easy to get flustered and not know what to ask. Here's my suggestion for dealing with one of these potentially high pressure type of interviews with a specialist. Realize when you're sitting in front of that specialist, you basically want the answers to 3 questions that should guide you and make the visit worthwhile. And here's the 3 questions I would ask if I were the patient sitting in front of the specialist. 1, doctor, in plain English, you're the specialist. In plain English, please explain to me what you think my problem is from your point of view, through your surgeon's eyes, your oncologist's eye. Explain to me what you think my issues are, and have them explain it in plain English so you really understand it. Second, after you understand, okay, now we both understand what you think we're dealing with here. Number 2, would you please lay out my range of options for treatment at this point, from doing nothing, just observing it, watching it, living a healthy life, all the way to the most high-tech intervention that science has to offer. Lay out my smorgasbord of choices, from the least invasive to the most invasive, so at least I know what my choices are. And third, I'd ask, fair enough, now I get it. Between you and me, doctor, if I were in your family, if I were your sister, your brother, your niece, your daughter, whatever, what would you, in your heart, what would you suggest that I do? Well, I'm not holding you responsible. Just what's your feeling about what do you think the best therapy would be? And once you have and that humanizes the situation as well. And you see them soften if they think you're their son or their daughter. And once you get the answer to those 3 questions, what's going on? What are my range of options? And what would you recommend? Unless it's something absolutely urgent, you're bleeding, you're writhing in pain. If it's short of that, if it's not that urgent, at that point, I think one of the best strategies to pursue is stand up, shake their hand, say thank you very much for your time and your input. I want to go home and think about what you said, and I'll get back to you when I've made a decision. And shake their hand and leave. There's unless again you're hemorrhaging out on the table. There's no urgency. You got to sign. We need this therapy to start right away this afternoon. That's seldom the case. Go home and think about it. Read about it. Talk to your friends. Do some computer searches if you need to. But shake their hand and say thank you. Let me go home and think about what you said. And that puts everyone on good terms. Lets them know that you've got power over your own life. And you got what you came for at that point. Go home and think about it. And you may get some other ideas, some input, and your own heart, your own gut will tell you, what direction you want to go into. But those are 3 questions to ask when you're in any specialist office that I think would serve you well and take some of the fear and confusion about these potentially high pressure situations. So here's a good use of questions.
That's great advice.
Okay, Got any questions there?
Oh, absolutely.
All
Okay.
right.
All right. So thank you guys for putting 4 question marks before so I can differentiate them. So the first one I see is from Julia. What resources do you recommend about the detriment of dairy relatable to a 16-year-old who thinks that dairy protein is healthy?
Oh my, I've got a few, but Dr. Burns, what do you have in your dairy food file there as far as things you don't want to do?
Well, I like the Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine website, PCRM. They have a lot of content on dairy, uh, the health issues, but also the environmental and ethical issues around dairy. And there are really good infographics. You can go to there's some page, we could link that, but there's a page with just infographics. So it can be really accessible for people. You just look at it and it's really compelling. It's like, it's all right there, the information you need. But for a 16-year-old, there's no nutritional requirement for dairy products. Simple as that. Um, they're welcome to have unsweetened plant milks and plant milk based products, but there's just no reason to be drinking a dairy product. It at that point, right? They've grown. They're usually pretty much through puberty, and any further growth can be generated by a healthy, balanced plant-based diet. So that's where I'd start.
Fair enough. What I would add to that, a couple things, as Dr. Burns said, we have no nutritional requirement for the milk of a cow any more than we do the milk of a giraffe. What does she really think is in that milk? Protein and calcium. Well, you can certainly get protein, from any plant foods, and the beans and peas and chickpeas and lentils and grains are full of protein. That's not an issue. And the calcium comes from green plants. Reminder, cows don't drink milk. Where do they get all that calcium? It's in the green plants they're eating, and that's why we should be eating lots of kale and broccoli and green leafy vegetables to get our calcium. So as far as her nutritional concerns, tell her relax. Millions, billions of people around the planet do not have access to cow's milk. They never drink it, and they grow up big and strong with healthy bones. It really isn't an issue. It's more marketing. But also two other things. One, she may not realize, do you realize that dairying has changed? And now in modern dairy operations, the cows are all pregnant. They didn't used to be. But the dairy cows are now pregnant. They've been genetically modified so that they will give milk, even though they're carrying their next calf. They would usually stop lactating, but they've been genetically modified. And so the milk has all the estrogens that any pregnant mammal has. It's full of estrone, estradiol, estriol, pregnanediol, progesterone, and these contribute to giving women breast lumps, makes fibroids bigger, and makes the prostate gland unstable in young men. The more dairy a boy consumes, the higher risk for prostate cancer as a man. And so these growth factors, not so healthy. It may, for a 16-year-old girl, may upset her menstrual periods, may make them more painful, more heavy. Now, again, they're cow estrogens. These are active mammalian estrogens, not the puny little phytoestrogens in soy. These are official mammalian estrogens, and they have estrogenic effects. So she should be aware of that. And finally, so do you realize that the dairying is a cruel industry? To keep that milk flowing, you got to keep making those mother calves pregnant when they have their baby. You got to keep taking those babies away to suck the milk off of them. And that the dairy barn is they say, well, you don't have to kill the cow. Yes, you do. The dairy industry is a slaughter industry. The dairy barn is a short stopping off place for a few years of calves and milk before they're all sent to the slaughterhouse and get their throats cut and turned into ground beef. When you walk into a fast food restaurant and you order a burger, what you're really eating between the in that bun are ground up old dairy cows. That's where the dairy industry winds up with these cows after a few years. So, and you're supporting that with every time you buy a container of dairy yogurt or cheese or Greek yogurt or whatever. So, do you really want to be supporting that with your economic power, which is a 16-year-old is now starting to take responsibility for how she spends her money? So I would tell her about the pregnancy in the cows and the truth of the dairy industry. And as Dr. Burns says, there's so much else now on the market to pour in your cereal, to eat for treats. There's so many wonderful plant milks and plant yogurts, etc. It's really time to let the cows out of the picture here. We've outgrown dairying and dairy products, and we should relegate them to the dustbin of history, not to our digestive systems.
And one more resource, especially for young people and athletes, people who are into fitness, you got to see Game Changers. That's so compelling, especially I mean, if this person, I think you said it's your daughter, she hasn't seen Game Changers, it's homework.
You'll see these magnificent athletes doing these wonderful feats without dairy products, without meat, any of that. The human body just has no need for the milk of a cow in any form, and those people show it on the film. Good point.
You think one day we'll look back at this and say, God, I can't believe people did that.
Can't believe we did that. The whole meat industry, that we raised these hundreds of millions of animals and killed them and ate them. We'll say, I can't.
We won't be around to say I told you so.
No, but it's okay. As long as the animals can live their lives in peace.
Exactly. Exactly.
We might be around.
We might be around. Yeah, Zach, you might be around for that one.
Zach, carry the torch, Zach. We need you.
We need your
Well,
help.
here's the thing. I mean, big picture, I think we're in this purgatory between the old country where there's subsistence farming, and it was just a completely different picture. We didn't have intensive animal agriculture. We didn't have environmental issues. And then in the future, it's obviously going to be a plant-based food system. What we're doing is totally economically, ethically, environmentally untenable. And so it's just we're in the sandwich. We're in the whatever's inside the sandwich of the past and the future. And it's this awkward, horrible time. And we got to expedite getting to that next piece of bread to the future where we'll have a plant-based food system.
I mean, indeed. I mean, there's so many things as Chef AJ's, intimated here that we used to do that we look back on and we say, my God, I can't believe we did this. We used to harpoon whales in the head with explosive charges and blow their brains apart. Well, my heavens, we used to buy and sell black people as slaves. Good God, well, how did we even turn a blind eye to that? And well, the whole animal industry, animal food industry is going to be one of those that we can't believe that we did that. And so don't be afraid to let that go into something we used to do. Sooner the better.
Yeah, like leeches.
Like leeches, indeed. We used to use leeches. They still do. Actually, the plastic surgeons and digital surgeons still use them to keep the blood flowing there.
Oh, that's funny.
But at least they know what they're doing and why they're doing it. It's no magic involved.
Right. Thank you. Jill would like to know if osteoporosis can be reversed.
Absolutely. The little cells, the osteoblasts that create new bone, are still in your cells, and they're just waiting for you to ask them to spin out new bone. What makes them spin out new bone material, new osteoid protein? That is using them and placing those little micro torques and stretches that happen, stresses in the bone when you're carrying a weight up a hill or whatever. We used to use our bones a lot more. We didn't spend our days sitting in front of computers. 100 years ago, 500 years ago, we spent all day outside gathering firewood, putting new thatch on the roofs, pulling stones and stumps out of the field, using heavy garden tools, carrying buckets of soil, buckets of water, things on our shoulder. And every time you take a step with some type of weight, a little micro stress goes down your bones, electrical fields are generated, and that stimulates those osteoblasts to send out and build out new bone. In the same way, your muscles, the more you use the muscle, they hypertrophy, they get bigger and stronger. Well, your bones work the same way. But not if we're living sedentary lives, which we do now. We sit, we sit, we sit. When we eat, when we work, when we travel, we sit, we sit. And it's the sitting our bones are dissolving out of osteoporosis is disuse atrophy of the bones, basically. Well, you can certainly turn it around, and the simplest ways, two things. There are lots of places you can purchase online a little 6-pound weighted vest, put it on and put a t-shirt over it and go for a walk. And every step you take, a little wow of weight goes down your spine and down your hips and stimulates those osteoblasts to spin out new bone. If you go walking, there's 1,000 steps in a mile. So if you walk a mile with one of these little weighted vests on, that's 1,000 times that little wow of weight has gone down your hips and down your bones. And the repetition over time, it's like doing, 1,000 curls with a lightweight dumbbell. And eventually your body is going to respond. But there's other ways to, I'm sorry, and with this vest, as I said, just wear it, put a t-shirt on, go to the post office, vacuum the rug, do anything. Just wearing the thing will strengthen your bones. So that's one thing to do. But after exercise, getting these elastic bands will put stress on the bones. Going to the gym and doing a power workout there. And again, the lighter weights done more repetitively are the better strategy than just grunting and doing 5 curls with 50 or 80 pounds. You're better off doing 10 pounds and doing a lot more repetitions. But use it or lose it is really true in the whole body, and including the skeletal system. So use those bones, and then don't do things that deplete the calcium and strength of the bones. Too much sugar in the diet, too much salt in the diet, too much caffeine in the diet. Um, uh, Cola drinks, anything that puts an acid load on the body, not the friend of your bones. So again, a whole food, plant-based diet and plenty of physical exercise. That osteoporosis it can be reversed, and don't be in a big hurry. If once you start a program like this, don't go, in 3 months, don't go get another DEXA scan. Wait a year, wait 2 years. There's no hurry here. Otherwise, you're going to be disappointed. Oh, it's not working. I've been doing this for 90 days. Bones respond slowly, and there's no hurry here. So get on that program, be consistent, and in the next year or two, we get another scan. Your doctor will be happy with the numbers. They'll say, "Oh, that Fosamax is working well for you." I'm not on Fosamax, doctor. I'm just using my bones, and they're getting stronger. And that's the key to reversing osteoporosis. It is reversible.
Nice. All right. So the next question from Carlene is, I love what you're doing to improve nutrition education in medical schools. Do you know if if anyone is doing something similar in other healthcare professions like pharmacy, nursing, dietetics?
I can weigh in that the American College of Lifestyle Medicine has these lifestyle medicine interest groups. They're at med schools across the country, but they're also at other health professional schools. So it could be physician assistant school or nursing school. I think they're predominantly at medical schools, but they're not. It's not exclusive. So if you know someone who's in an allied health profession and they're training, and they want to set up a group to expose their classmates to this information, then you can let us know. You can go on the American College of Lifestyle Medicine ACLM website and set up through them. So definitely, it's not just for doctors. People see a variety of clinicians, and they all have to be nutritionally aware, right? If we're going to make those imprints on people, there's some studies that for lifestyle change, you need about 12 touch points of counseling. It's not just one conversation that will affect behavioral change. So we really need our colleagues in other professions to be on board.
Well said.
Thanks. Well, this kind of a similar point or question on Instagram. Dior Ramadam says, what would it take for our medical school system and industry to start teaching nutrition? Their willful blind ignorance is causing great harm. That's what Dr. Klaper and Dr. Burns actually are doing through moving medicine forward.
Absolutely. This is our focus of our professional work. And there's an excitement and a sadness about it at the same time. We shouldn't have to be doing this work here, and we shouldn't have to embarrass the medical education establishment into teaching this most fundamental of all healing modalities, what the patient is eating, and the fact that it's totally ignored in medical education. They can just shoot right through to put a diagnosis on them and get them on the right medicine, get them to the right surgeon, and you've done your job, doctor. No, you haven't. You haven't asked the patient, take me through an eating day. What are you eating? And I'm working in a clinic right now in Victoria, British Columbia, where the Canadian government pays for the plant-based dietitian to do counseling, and the patient sees the primary care doctor, and the next stop is the plant-based dietitian. And often she is in the or he is in the room, and the initial exam, when the patient's seeing the doctor, the dietitian's also there making notes into the same chart that the doctor's writing into. They are both seeing the patient because that patient is usually sitting in front of them with a body that is overweight, diabetic, hypertensive, clogged up, and inflamed from what they're eating. They're dealing with food-based illnesses. And it's so appropriate to have the plant-based dietitian in the room. She needs to be part of, or he needs to be part of the primary care treatment team. I'm gathering up the beneficial outcomes that come from these encounters, and I'm going to come back to the States and make presentations to the American Medical Association, the American College of Cardiology. Say, this is what happens when you incorporate plant-based dietitians onto your primary care treatment team. People get healthier. You want to heal these patients or don't you? And then I'm going to have to embarrass them into the insurance companies paying for the dietitians and paying for the health coaches like they do here in Canada. But that's a long-term strategy. Again, I shouldn't have to do that. So what will it take? The reason Dr. Burns and I are lecturing to medical students, et cetera, is to light that fire in their head, that understanding that one, the majority of diseases they are seeing in the clinics, the high blood pressure, diabetes, clogged arteries, these are reversible diseases. Nobody told me that in school. They're still not teaching reversibility of diseases in medical school. So we want to get that understanding going in their heads. And second, that a plant-based diet is the key to this reversal. It's not the only thing required, but it's square one to get the reversal processes happening. And the more medical students, the more young doctors, residents, attending physicians we can impart that understanding to, they're going to start talking to their patients, and the public will demand it. And the word will get around, gee, my doctor talked to me, asked me what I was eating. My doctor connected me with a plant-based health coach. Once that starts getting out into society, similar to the politicians, when the public changes their mind, the politicians follow. Well, the same thing, the health educators will follow. When the public is demanding that their doctors know something about nutrition, when the young doctors are demanding that they be taught something about it. We're in the early stages of it, but we're chipping away at it, and school by school, doctor by doctor, we'll get that understanding going till it becomes widely accepted. So see if you can. I think the best strategy would be to make your own doctor more aware of nutrition. How are we going to get these plant-based doctors? Well, how about making your own doctor a plant-based doctor? And we should be working on a handout to bring to the doctor, or some websites they can go to, and there are such. And at Moving Medicine Forward, we're going to come on our website. We'll have here's what to bring to your doctor, how to make your doctor a plant-based, at least an ally if they're not going to change themselves. Many doctors will just blow it off. I don't have time for that. It's all California woo-woo stuff. But then find another doctor if that's the response that you get. They should at least say, huh. Let me have a look at this sheet here. It might be something important. Reversing high blood pressure, reversing diabetes. Gee, I want to learn more about that. That's the doctor you want. And so we'll be providing that information, but it's already out there. And PCRM has good information Dr. Greger has good information on that. But moving medicine forward, we'll, the next couple of months, we'll come up with a how to make your doctor a plant-based ally.
Perfect. Thank you. We celebrate eating plants as asking for those of us who want to help save lives with whole food plants, but who are not doctors or dietitians, where can we look for helping jobs?
I'd say think about what your strengths are, and there's always going to be a field where you can apply them. And you absolutely have a powerful voice in making this transition to a plant-based food system. It starts with having conversations with people you know, right? And doing it delicately, tactfully, so as not to alienate yourself or them, but be honest. You know how important this issue is, how many social issues it touches, and I mean, we have an imperative to talk about it. A little unrelated, but I just read this editorial from the American Journal of Cardiology. It's called something like The Moral Imperative of Plant-Based Nutrition Counseling for Doctors. It's more related to the last question, but I do think there's mounting pressure in the medical community to use our voices about this because of the urgency. But anyone, you don't have to be in medicine. You could be an artist, right? And you can volunteer your work to help with graphic design for some of these nonprofit organizations who are running campaigns on related issues. You can be a musician and do similar work. You can you can be a chef, of course. Start a restaurant. So
there's wonderful information available. There's a gentleman, James Hicks, who writes very powerful environmental action calls. If you Google the 4-leaf plan, number 4-leaf plan, you'll see what he has to offer. It'll give you all the information you need as well, including ideas for work. But when Dr. Burns talked about the moral imperative, that's because doctors are finally understanding that large-scale industrial animal agriculture is the main driving force of global warming, climate change. It's why we're cutting down the forests. It's why the waters are getting depleted to grow alfalfa in the deserts to feed the cattle. It's our meat habit that's driving us to the abyss, and this is beyond your cholesterol level. It doesn't matter what your cholesterol level is if we don't have a habitable planet to live on. And that's the moral imperative. How can we betray our children and our grandchildren by destroying their planet, by not recognizing what is on our plates and the true cost of it? And it's stunning to me. We can do all these exact, precise scientific measurements. We can detect a genetic mismatch of gene A21 on chromosome 14. But the thought that eating cheeseburgers and buffalo wings is clogging up our patients' arteries and destroying the planet when it's so blatant, we don't want to see that. And we don't have time to not see it any longer. And that's the moral imperative. And so, if there's going to be any revolutionary changes, it will be among the young people where finally the word gets out. The meat is killing our future. Stop eating this stuff and eat the veggie burgers or whatever it is. And through the amazing blighted internet that will spread around the world within a few mouse clicks. And if the kids are ready and they're tired of the ice caps melting and tired of wringing their hand and clutching their pearls, we have no future. Change the food is the one thing that will back us away from the abyss of extinction we're facing here. And we need to get that message out. So if you want to work, school yourself in this important point of view. There's a wonderful book called Comfortably Unaware by Dr. Richard Oppenlander. Comfortably Unaware, just where the meat and dairy industries want us. Don't worry about what it's doing to the planet. You keep eating those burgers. Don't be worried about what it's doing to your future. Comfortably Unaware. Go to that website, go to the 4-leaf website and school yourself in these very important issues that you don't need to be an MD to understand. And then get the word out. Have potlucks, post on the Facebook pages, post notices at the local laundromat, at your local schools. Get the word out. Be a good example, and help save all our futures by making this plant-based transition happen. Find a way to incorporate it into your job, into your work, into your activities. That's the best use for any of our time on this planet at this time.
The last thing I'd add is that the climate movement is really strong, and there's some overlap between people interested in plant-based nutrition and climate, of course. But the climate movement has this incredible blind spot around the role of our food system in contributing to climate change and other environmental calamities. So one thing that we can all do, if you're involved in a local environmental organization, through your kid's school, or if you're retired and you do some volunteering with the local group, make sure that they're thinking about the food connection. And that can be your role, just reminding the group that it's not just a fossil fuel issue. Our food system is incredibly potent in making the planet warmer and more dangerous. And so that, I think, the climate groups are very slowly catching on, but that's one way that we can all contribute.
Thank you. Here's just a comment from Susanna, who's watching live. Several years ago, when you were still doing telehealth, you spoke with my then 56-year-old husband, who was at the beginning of his plant-based journey. He was suffering from high cholesterol and high blood pressure, and his PCP was about to put him on medications. Although it was only a 1-hour call, your time with him made all the difference in the world. I'm happy to report that his cholesterol and blood pressure normalized without any medication, just with a healthy plant-based diet alone. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you for creating Moving Medicine Forward so that more physicians are learning about promoting the benefits of plant-based nutrition.
Oh, thank you so much for those words. That really helps me to hear that. And congratulations to your husband and you. Thank you.
Nice. And she's lost like 70 pounds. It's amazing. I always hear Dr. Greger, is there nothing that a plant-based diet cannot do? So
Indeed.
it's always in my head.
That's medicine going.
Yep. Meredith would like to know if calcified plaque in arteries can be reversed or just halted.
If you don't mind, Dr. Burns, I'll take this one. These calcium flecks in the long answer, but important thing is, one, no, they don't go away, and you don't want them to go away, and it doesn't matter that they're there. But do pay attention to the lesson they are trying to teach. What do we mean by that? The story of these calcium flecks, from my understanding, is this. Whenever there is chronic inflammation in the body, when tissues are chronically inflamed, and this can happen if you have a tendon that's rubbing over a bone spur, you have any place, a bursa over a joint that's chronically inflamed from trauma or whatever, after months and months and months of trying to resolve the inflammation, if that little focus of inflammation is continuing to be present, one of the body's last ditch ways of dealing with an area of chronic inflammation is to pack it full of calcium, is to turn it into stone, and the inflammatory processes subside at that point. You wind up with a little chunk of calcium there, but you wind up with a calcific tendonitis, calcific bursitis. It's a common reaction that the body has to deal with chronic inflammation. Well, we're now learning that the process of atherosclerotic plaque formation that creates the artery disease, etc., that's an inflammatory process as well. And if the person's eating the standard Western diet, meal after meal, every 4 hours, the animal proteins and the vegetable oils and the high fructose corn syrup, the whole red tide from the Western diet that flushes through the arteries, this sets off inflammation. So you've got a chronic inflammatory stimulus irritating the walls of the arteries, meal after meal, month after month. And after a while, the body again gets out the chronic inflammation solution and starts packing it full of calcium. And so this is the body's way of dealing with the chronic inflammation of the atherosclerotic process. Um, Now, there's an advantage that if you've got plaques in the arteries that are softening, getting ready to rupture, it's a good idea to turn them into stone, because that's what kills the person, is when these soft plaques open up and set off a clot that blocks the blood flow downstream in the heart muscle or up in the brain there. And so this is the body's way of preventing plaque rupture and clot formation. And and so that's the message that these calcified plaques give us. Um, they are signs of the inflammation in the past. It says that you're capable of creating plaques, and your body's trying to deal with them. So it's a message to clean up your diet. But the plaque itself has been turned to stone, and it really isn't a threat to you. In fact, you want that calcium to remain in that plaque to keep that plaque stable. If I can just tell you a little story, a few years ago, I went to the Gettysburg National Battlefield Monument there, where the Battle of Gettysburg was fought. And you walk into the visitor center, and there's this huge diorama of the battle. And there's literally thousands of little plaster soldiers, half of them painted blue and half of them painted gray. And they're in their battle poses with their bayonets and their rifles, etc. But they're plaster figures frozen in time, recalling, reminiscent of the battle in the past. And that's what the calcium flecks in your arteries are. They are like the soldier. They're flecks of calcium frozen in time, remnants of the inflammation of the past, saying your body and your diet have the ability to create atherosclerotic plaques. Your body's trying to wall it off. Change your diet so you don't create any more of them. But the plaques themselves aren't really causing any damage there, but they're saying uh, your body's never not looking, and every meal makes a difference here. And so you want to switch to a diet that helps melt away those plaques, like Dr. Esselstyn's plaque reversing diet there. So don't worry about the flex, but do take and then that number won't go down, but do take the message seriously. It's the soft plaques that kill us, not the calcified ones. It's the soft ones that rupture and set off the clots there. So clean up your diet all the way around. The message is still the same: a whole food, plant-based diet, and don't do other things like eating lots of sugar and smoking cigarettes and things that further increase the inflammation in the artery walls, which is really the underlying message.
Yep. Kelly's commenting that you have one of the best quotes, that animals have their revenge on us with the diseases they give us for eating them.
Indeed. Indeed. It shouldn't have to be that way, but that's what we've created here. And it's not the animal's fault, it's ours.
Yeah. Well, Janet would like to know what options someone has to reverse neuropathy in the feet besides eating a whole food plant-based diet.
Well, go ahead, Dr. Burns.
I'm going to take a stab. Well, it's important to identify what might be causing the neuropathy.
Indeed.
There are a few different things. So often, most commonly, it's from metabolic damage. So if you have hyperglycemia from your diabetes for a very long time, it damages the nerves and gives you that burning sensation, especially on the bottom of the feet or the hands. Alcohol can do it. Okay. Other vascular disease, different things. And of course, if you have like a mechanical issue in your lumbar spine, and you actually have a neurologic issue and the nerves are impinged, or you have a radiculopathy, you got to identify that. So the root cause, right, is always key. But very commonly it's from cardiometabolic disease. And so a whole food plant-based diet is usually the most potent fix if it is that. Now, if it's coming from your lumbar spine, then hopefully you won't need surgery. Depends how bad it is. And you could start with physical therapy, or osteopathic manipulation, which is something that us DOs train in, can be really effective for that. But you may need imaging of the lumbar spine, or an EMG, which is electromyography. It looks at the nerve impulses going down the leg. So it might involve a little bit of a workup. You also want to make sure that your vitamin B12 level is tanked up. Okay, so some are familiar with B12. Bacteria make it in the soil with modern sanitation. We don't get those traces of soil. And so if you're a strict herbivore, then you should supplement B12, because you're not getting it from the animal products where the animals are routinely injected with B12 to compensate for their deficiency. So think about all these things. It can be a little complex, but I would start there.
Dr. Burns hit all the major bases there. Just to focus it a bit more, there's there's certainly things that can injure the nerves, and vitamin deficiencies can be one of them. And again, make sure your B12 is topped up. But there's a saying in medicine: common things are common. And before we assume that you've got early neuropathy from beriberi or some exotic disease there. The two most common things, as you mentioned, one, alcohol certainly is damaging to the nerves there, and that glass of wine with dinner night after night might be taking its toll on your nerves there. But also, the actual nerve compression, the fact is down in your feet there, as Dr. Burns is implying, the nerves that go into the feet come out from the lumbar spine. With our sedentary lifestyles, we're sitting at the computer, and the weight of our head, the weight of our chest, and especially if we're carrying extra body fat there, they're all pushing down on our lumbar vertebrae, and the discs between the vertebrae can get squished and start protruding forward and start impinging upon the nerve. So before you sign up for nerve conduction studies and all that stuff, insist that your doctor order an MRI of your lumbosacral spine, and make sure that you don't have a physical or mechanical nerve impingement. Something's pushing on those discs, whether it's a bone spur or a prolapsed disc. And if so, that is certainly fixable. Most of the time, the body resolves it on its own. One way to tell is to lay down on a yoga mat or on your back, and then bring your knees up to the chest, and gently curl your knees and chest. And if that gives you relief, oh, that feels much better, then there's a good chance that that's what you're looking at is impingement from something mechanical happening down your lumbar spine. And yes, keep up your B12 and all that stuff, but get a proper imaging done of your lumbar spine, and take the proper steps. Many times it's just yoga and physiotherapy, as Dr. Burns said. Surgery should be a last resort.
Thanks. Integrative Health for Your Life, watching on Instagram, would like to know if there's any truth to the advantages of hydrogen water, or is it just another fad?
I think it's a complete marketing scam. The water is constantly dissociating and changing. The molecules are constantly coming apart, coming back together again on an atomic level. To think that you can constantly actually put them in a different configuration that they will hold in any way I think is literally atomically, physically impossible. The atomic world just doesn't work like that. If you want your water a little alkaline, as Dr. Greger says, then take a gallon of fresh water and literally put a pinch, a 1/16 of a teaspoon of sodium bicarbonate in there, and you'll make alkaline water. But you certainly don't need to get a $6,000 alkalizing machine. And I think the hydrogen water and all that stuff is marketing nonsense. And they're laughing all the way to the bank on our ignorance on that one.
Thank you. So here is somebody named Sierra Goodman who says, Dr. Klaper, it's so good to see you. I worked for you in Redondo Beach a long, long time ago, almost 30 years. You look great, a perfect testament to plant-based eating, oceans of love.
Thank you, and thanks for your work back then in Manhattan Beach, and appreciate you checking in. All the best to you.
Thanks. Here's the million-dollar question. This is what we fight about in the plant-based world. Karen is asking, so nuts? No nuts? And what percentage of fat grams or percent of fat a day do you recommend?
So I would recommend some nuts, unless you have advanced cardiovascular disease and you're really doing like an incredibly low fat Esselstyn style diet, which is important if you're in that place. For everyone who doesn't have existing advanced cardiovascular disease, nuts are recommended, but you want to limit them because they're calorically dense and they have fat, right? So you want to have basically a quarter cup of nuts, like a small handful a day. It's hard to keep it that low. So I've heard other people recommend, like, you take it out of the bag, you allocate the amount, and then you just eat that. You don't have the bag open in front of you. Walnuts and almonds have a really good nutrition profile in terms of the protein to fat ratio and the omega-3 fatty acids. And then make sure you're getting some seeds as well, pumpkin seeds, flax seeds, chia, because those are great sources of omega-3s also.
Dr. Burns answered that just beautifully. He definitely hit all the bases. And just to put it in context, Dr. T. Colin Campbell wrote this wonderful book, Whole, W-H-O-L-E. And he's saying, please stop zeroing in on how much fat in this nut and that. It's the whole food stream entering your body on a daily basis. And if that whole food stream is by weight, volume, and composition, it's made up of salads and vegetable soups and steamed veggies and rice and beans and fruits and vegetables. Whether there's a small handful of nuts in there really doesn't make a heck of a lot of difference. And it could, in a certainly good way, if they're walnuts, give you a little omega-3 hit there. But to have great generational rifts in the plant-based community about the nuts. Yes, not a small handful of nuts is not going to do anybody harm, especially if they are unroasted. They're fresh nuts. Once you roast the nuts, you start oxidizing the oils and stuff and creating free radicals. You want raw walnuts, raw cashews, and a small handful of that isn't going to hurt anybody unless, as Dr. Burns said, you are all clogged up with atherosclerotic plaque. No, you don't want to be adding extra fat to that. But short of that condition, if your diet is really whole food, plant-based, a small handful of nuts is not going to hurt, and it's probably going to help you. And so get on with your life. More important things to focus on.
So not to throw fuel on the fire, but I'm just going to give another point of view. I'm not a doctor, obviously. I've never worked with people in a medical space. But for the last 15 years, I've worked for people, helping them lose weight and try to manage food addictions. And there's a saying in AA, one drink, one drunk. And a lot of you doctors have always been lean and you've never really suffered with this. And I love Dr. Furman. He's going to be on the show, my final show of the series on June 30th. And we've talked about this. And I have worked with people, and myself included, that we can't have the nuts in the house, that we don't know how to take that 2 ounce or 1 ounce, that just knowing in their house bangs on our brain. And I've talked to him about it. He goes, well, have a neighbor bring him over every day, the 1 ounce. My neighbor's not going to do that. And so, I mean, Dr. Lyle and Dr. Goldhammer and Dr. Barnard have said there's no one food people have to have. I get my omega-3s tested every year. They're fine just eating lots of greens. And I can include things like chia seeds. I don't care for flax, but there are people, and they feel so bad that they can't monitor this, that they've tried, even with nuts they don't like Brazil nuts, that there is something about fat that is so exciting to us that even in a fat we don't like, that once we have it, we just can't stop eating it. And people that I love, like you and Brenda Davis, they just don't get it because they don't have that brain, and they don't have the history of being 50 and 100 pounds overweight and struggling.
Oh, AJ, thank you for that. That is so valid. And with my caveat about if you're all clogged up, if you have artery disease, but absolutely, if you are struggling to lose weight, you should not be eating nuts. And for all the reasons AJ just says, one leads to more, and it is fatty, and it can keep you stuck. So she's absolutely right with that. If you're trying to lose weight, don't have nuts in your house or don't be eating them. Once you get down to your ideal body weight, you can loosen up on it, liberalize that. But she's absolutely right. And that's an appropriate way to look at the nut issue. Thank you for that.
Thank you. So Dee Dee says, Dr. Klaper, I love you. Are you taking patients virtually?
Yes, I'm going to start doing that again. I will be putting that on my drklapper.com website. What is this, June? By the end of the month, I'll have a little area on my website that you can arrange consultations. Yes, I'm going to start doing that again.
Great. And then once you know, we'll put it in the show notes here for every single show.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, here's a woman's question for both you men from Monica. Any advice for women entering menopause or resources for women already on a plant-based diet? Weight gain is happening despite eating a healthy plant-based diet during this time.
Menopausal middle, it's a thing. And as estrogen levels fall, the body changes the estrogen production, it uses more peripheral fat for estrogen production and accumulates fat around the middle there. The one thing to do is to include soy products in your diet. The phytoestrogens in soy really help with menopausal symptoms. They help with hot flashes, etc. But I think that they exert a low-grade estrogenic effect as far as your skin goes, etc. So a handful of edamame beans, some tempeh, tofu, a glass of soy milk should definitely be in your daily regimen. Once a day, have something with soy in it. That hopefully will help the body from accumulating a lot of fat around the middle. And have an honest look at your diet. Baked goods, flour products are not your friend at this point. The combination of fat and sugar sticks to you, and all vegan donuts and baked goods, etc., are sugars, pastry flour, held together by some fat, by some shortening or whatever. And so, again, whole food, plant-based means no flour products. And the hidden oils that are restaurant foods, etc. So restaurant food and baked goods really need to be kept to an absolute minimum to avoid that weight gain, and have some fat in have some soy in your diet on a pretty regular basis. And two things that I'd recommend.
Mm-hmm. So also, if you're really stuck and the symptoms are debilitating and you don't want to go on estrogen or you're not eligible, and then one option is to explore supplements. And I'm not a supplement guy, but in the integrative medicine world, there are definitely some supplements that have shown some data around mitigating menopausal symptoms. So you could explore that. It could be that your conventionally trained doc doesn't know a ton about it. I don't personally, but that is an avenue to explore.
Do you know which kind of supplements in particular? I hate to name one here, but I
Yeah,
don't.
no, I don't. But it came up recently, and because a lot of people are stuck in that situation, and it can be a pretty benign approach.
Fair enough.
Cool. Okay. Here is a fun question. And I just today was listening to a lecture that Dr. John Scharfenberg gave. Are you guys familiar with him? He's
Oh
almost
my, John
he
Scharfenberg.
was Dr.
Right?
Hans Diel's professor, and he's almost 101 years old. And I was watching a live stream of him at Weimar giving a talk about this. And the person, Liberia, is saying, should a person eliminate alcohol completely, or can it be consumed occasionally? I'm sure you know what he would say to that, being an Adventist.
I think alcohol is a poison. I think it's a toxin to every organ in the body. It kills everything that it touches, and I see no medicinal benefit for it at all. There are non-alcoholic wines if you want that taste or whatever. There's non-alcoholic beers. I don't think, and I think recently the cancer folks come out with saying when it comes to breast cancer, there is no safe dosage of alcohol. They all increase a woman's risk of breast cancer. I'm sure it doesn't do great things for guys' prostates, certainly doesn't do great things for your brain. No, less is more and none is best when it comes to alcohol, as far as I'm concerned.
Thank you. And there's so many doctors that don't say that, even plant-based doctors. And it's usually the ones that drink themselves, by the way.
Indeed.
You know?
So I train in kind of suburban Rhode Island, and we have a horrific alcohol crisis in this community, and it's I just wanted to add this, that I mean, we see people with terminal liver disease, they have cirrhosis from the alcohol drinking, and it's this thing happen. You might not know people struggling with this, or it might not be in your daily life, but it's out there. It's, you know, if honestly, if to what am I trying to say? Like, if we had people should really think about what alcohol is doing, right? We still market it, right? It's on billboards and it's everywhere. We have bars on the side of highways. People are expected to drive home afterwards. It's a public health crisis. So I think we should think about that more. You know, it should be a central component of lifestyle medicine, is to counsel and make sure people aren't getting into heavy drinking, and that if they are stuck, that they have resources and support.
One glass of wine a year on your anniversary, is probably within the limits, but I would hold it to that frequency there. I would not do a nightly glass of wine, that's for sure. And once or twice a year, you want to have a spaghetti dinner, okay, but a little white wine. But then I would hold it at that. Less is more. And that is
Are these people that can moderate like their wine and their, I mean, I just admire them, to have one, anyway, if you can do it.
But
Most,
yeah, but again, it's a toxin. Their nerves are a little bit more damaged from that. What are they really moderating? They can, it's a little bit of toxicity, and their microbiomes, it kills off some gut bacteria, changes the bacteria in their mouth, changes their brain chemistry. What are they doing in moderation? Just because they don't get stone cold drunk doesn't mean it's not having an adverse effect. So, again, I don't think it has a rightful place in the human body.
Also,
yeah.
the justification of antioxidants is kind of silly if you think about it, because you can readily get the same antioxidants from grapes,
Grapes.
blueberries, pomegranates. So
Absolutely.
there's nothing, alcohol doesn't have a monopoly on antioxidants.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I don't see non-alcoholic wine being like a big seller because that people don't, it's not the taste. Come on. And it's not the taste of the coffee. People want the drug. Why can't they just be honest?
Absolutely.
Yeah. How many people drink decaf and alcohol-free wine? Anyway, this next question from Hyacinth is, what do you think of oil pulling? Not sure really what that is.
I've read about it. Strange kind of thing. Apparently, it takes some sesame oil or some type of food oil, which is an abnormal, it's an unnatural substance to begin with, and you slush around your mouth. Is supposed to pull out all sorts of toxins from your gums and kill germs, etc. And then you spit it out. I get the impression that's what it's supposed to be doing, but. Would that be beneficial? You're inevitably going to swallow some oil. Is it? I don't know why you would really get any advantage that you wouldn't out of good oral hygiene. It's the food particles left behind that foster bacterial growth, and the acids that those bacteria produce are what digest and damage your gum tissues, etc. And so you want to get those food particles out. Would the oil neutralize them in some way? Maybe, but if they're still left behind, now you've got oil-soaked food particles in there. One of the best things we did in our house was to buy one of these water picks, and that sends this pulsing stream of water in between your teeth there, a water flosser. And boy, that leaves your mouth nice and clean. And I think that probably does what the oil pulling folks are hoping that the oil does. So I don't see much advantage of it. Now, I haven't read the literature on oil pulling. Maybe there is some other advantage. But if it's really to help the health of your gums or whatever, I would think about getting one of these water flossers and using them is really important, at least once, if not twice a day. Yeah, because so many of our wonderful plant-based foods, they stick between your teeth afterwards. I eat lunch twice from the salad that I eat, and then all the food that's stuck in between my teeth there. But I go to the bathroom and flush it out, and leaves my mouth nice and clean and healthy. So again, I'm not convinced oil pulling has any great advantages, but
Thank
my ignorance.
you. Let's see. Marina on Facebook is saying, well, what about the Mediterranean population that drinks wine and lives to 100? They don't realize it's not the wine that's making them live longer. They're living long despite it, not because of it.
Beautifully said. They live as because, in spite of the olive oil, in spite of the wine, in spite of all these other things, it's the plant-based diet and all the walking they do. Their villages are built on mountainsides to go anywhere. You got to walk uphill to get to your neighbors, and that's it's the lack of the meat and the dairy and the toxic foods and the plethora of healthy vegetables and all the exercise and social support they get. They're out with family, they're working in the garden. It's the healthy lives they live. It's not the magic wine and olive oil that they're consuming.
Yeah. Lisa would like to know, how does one get started on plant-based eating?
Ooh, we love that kind of question.
I knew you
It's
would.
just it's just great to hear that someone's enthusiastic about it, right? Once in a while, someone comes to me and they say, I want to start eating plant-based, or I want to be vegan. And we're like, oh, how refreshing, because usually we have to nag people. Um, it's sort of the other way around. But I mean, it depends what your motivation is, I think, right? So why are you interested in plant-based eating? Do you have a health condition? Is it to support a family member with one? And I think that should be used to tailor your, like, the resources where you go with it. But I mean, Chef AJ's channel is amazing. All that you can learn, so many ways to eat in a delicious and satisfying way through the cooking demos, and you can hear, there's a lot of information as well from and testimonials. So that's one of my favorite parts of your channel, is people who've had dramatic health recoveries. So you can do that for inspiration. But some basic resources that I give, I like the Forks Over Knives website. Use your fork so the surgeon doesn't have to use their knife, right? That's the concept. Forks Over Knives has everything from recipes to shopping lists to meal plans to testimonials. You can also go to nutritionfacts.org, where Dr. Greger has all sorts of videos on every nutrition topic. And so those are a couple of my go-tos.
And there's also some wonderful jumpstart programs that will really help you. They'll take your hand for 2 weeks and give you recipes and group support. Go to Rochester Lifestyle Medicine Institute, RLMI.org, and they've got a great jumpstart program. And there's another, just do vegan jumpstart, do a search on vegan jumpstart programs, but RLMI has one of the best ones going. And PCRM has their 21-day vegan starter program. And again, recipes and encouragement shows up in your inbox every day. And there's group support as well. So check out PCRM.org and RLMI.org and check out their starter jumpstart programs, and you'll get your good beginning in plant-based eating.
Yeah, and if they have a local Adventist church or hospitals, even still, some people are teaching the CHIP program,
Indeed.
even today. Yeah, nice. Thank you. So Andrea says, I'm a 43-year-old female just diagnosed with gallstones due to upper gastric painful episodes for the last year. Can I avoid surgery with adopting a low-fat, plant-based way of eating?
So it's hard to know without, we can't really give personal recommendations, but big picture, can people in general mitigate their biliary colic, this pain that people get intermittently when they have gallstones because one of the stone gets caught in the duct? Can they reduce that symptom and avoid surgery? Generally, absolutely yes. It's a readily reversible condition. So that's an important thing to ask. And yes, you want to reduce the fat in the diet because basically the gallbladder needs to put out fat, the bile to break down, digest these fats. So you're putting strain on it with a higher fat diet. So a whole plant food diet is naturally low fat. It's going to really alleviate the gallbladder situation, prevent further stone formation. And as long as one doesn't get stuck and clogged in the duct, and you develop an infection, cholecystitis, then you wouldn't have to have the gallbladder removed.
Indeed, the gallbladder is a bag of muscle. There's a muscular layer to the wall of the gallbladder, and it fills up with bile in between meals. Bile is a detergent that helps you absorb your fats. So the gallbladder fills up with bile. And then when one eats a meal with fat in it, if you have nuts or avocado or whatever, certainly if you have animal products, sounds like this person is not plant-based. If you have egg yolks or fatty meats, whatever, as soon as the body senses the fats in the bloodstream, it sends a message to the gallbladder, and the gallbladder squeezes and to squeeze put a surge of bile down into the intestine to help you absorb your fats. Well, if that gallbladder is full of stones and you eat a fatty meal and that makes that gallbladder squeeze and there's stones in there, it'll pop one of these stones up into the cystic duct. And now the gallbladder is squeezing on an obstructed duct. And oh boy, that hurts. That's what precipitates these gallstone attacks. Well, rice and beans and greens don't do that. They don't have that kind of fat load. And so, as Dr. Burns is implying, if you keep your diet as those two magic words, low fat, if you don't ask that gallbladder to squeeze, then even though there may be stones in there, you can live to be 110 with or without stones in your gallbladder. It really is not a life-threatening situation. So yes, and all the more reason to keep your diet low fat, plant-based. There's a good chance you might evade the surgeon's knife.
Dr. Klaper, you used to have this phrase that I loved about camp, stop kidding yourself.
Indeed. Welcome to Camp Stop Kidding Yourself.
Because I'm seeing like these comments, because some of the things we say, like people don't like the answer, because you know how they like good news about their bad habits. And of course, if they're doing everything else right, and maybe one thing that's not ideal, that's okay. But it's not about like whether it's just like you're just telling the truth about whether or not it's helpful. So I appreciate that. But a lot of people don't. Yeah.
I have a great photo of Dr. Klaper standing in front of his slide called "Welcome to Camp Stop Kidding Yourself." We were at True North, and I did, which is, for those unaware, it's the medically supervised fasting center where people really do wonders on their conditions and can often reverse them. And I really felt like I was at Camp Stop Kidding Yourself because the tone of the place is it's very direct. So it was really refreshing because in other medical settings, you can't be as honest.
Great. I want to respect your time because, we could do this all day. So you guys have to tell me when to stop. So.
We have about another 10 minutes.
Okay, fantastic. All right. Perfect. Okay, I saw one actually. I've got to find it, Dr. Klaper. Somebody was asking you about DHA because I know you've publicly talked about your, I'm not going to say battle, but your experience with taking it, not taking it. I'm going to try to find the question, but they're wondering if you're still taking it now, and
Yeah, I'm still on the knife edge. I've not made up my mind on this. I'm getting more and more articles saying taking DHA interferes with your own fatty acid metabolism. Other ones saying that it's definitely of benefit. And I was taking it faithfully every day. It's interesting as my doubts about taking it rise. I'm taking it less and less often. When I remember it once or twice a week, I've been taking it, which probably doesn't do anything. And I'm looking for that decisive article that either locks it in, yes, I really need to take this, or no, that's silly to be taking this. It doesn't do any good. I'm still not at that point. So I'm taking it sporadically, still looking for definitive proof one way or the other. When I get to that point, I'll put out a video and let you know what I think. But at this point, I'm not convinced either way that it makes any much difference, but it might. So one of the truly gray areas in nutritional medicine at this point. I'm still researching the subject.
Does he or doesn't he? Yeah, because the thing is, cost benefit analysis, risks to the risk. It'll be interesting what you discover because people are asking, well, they heard it prevents dementia and things like that. So they're
Heard
wondering.
that too, but it's hard thing to prove.
But the thing is are the people already eating as well as you for as long as you ate? You know what I'm saying? So this is why it can, I think people, it's so confusing. So yeah, people are asking about pacha bread. I don't know if you guys are familiar with it. It's sold in the freezer section of store called Whole Foods, and it's literally two ingredients, buckwheat and water with a little bit of salt.
Sounds good to
What are
me.
they asking about it?
Is it okay? Because I mean,
Whether it's kosher.
Goldhammer would say no because of the little bit of salt. I eat it, not every day, but it's not like eating like soft, fluffy, warm bread. It's little bread, and they're these little tiny pieces, and it's like $10 for a little tiny loaf. So
I mean, with commercial white bread, what is it? Why do we want to eat it? Well, there's dairy in it, and there's shortening in it, and white flour. Those things, you each have their own problems. We want to stay away from it. So here's a bread that seems to be on the opposite side. Apparently, it's whole grain, and there is no dairy, there's no oils, there's no shortening, there's none of that in there. That uh, it seems if it's just the grain and the water and a pinch of salt, I have a hard time thinking there's anything wrong with that. You want to eat 2 loaves of it a day, but I think it's fine.
it's too expensive to eat 2 loaves a day. It's $9.99 for like it's just a few pieces. So I had them on the show. I mean, for me, it's not a trigger, and like I said, it's not like big fluffy, like warm bread. Like it's not like to me, it's not a pleasure trap food, but it's nice to, because when I'm doing a plant burger, it's nice to have something that's not a lettuce leaf. But anyway, cool. Okay. So this is from Rio, and I have APOE4, and I have total lipids of 206, LDL of 115. I eat whole food plant-based and exercise. Should I consider a statin?
Oh my, that question. So the ApoE4 gene apparently puts one at risk for Alzheimer's. Yes,
Yeah,
right.
especially if you have multiple alleles. So it really your proclivity for Alzheimer's really depends if you have all 4 alleles or just some, is my understanding. So you can stratify the risk that way, but you're certainly not. It's not like predetermined that you're going to have Alzheimer's because you have this genetic predisposition. We have so much power over whether we come down with this disease or that disease. Not ultimate power. Things happen, but I want to empower this person. There's so much you can do. Whether you should be on a statin for primary prevention. I mean, it's really, so what's the FDA indications? It's for cardiovascular disease. It's not really to prevent dementia. So there's no official indication for using a statin to prevent dementia. We do know that dementia and including vascular dementia and Alzheimer's have have a big cardiovascular component. Like so we're finding more and more when you look at an autopsy of someone's cerebral blood vessels, there's plaque in them. There's a vascular component to that disease. So you want good vascular health, but I don't think you necessarily need a statin, especially if you haven't had a cardiac event. You just want to be more careful than maybe someone else who could get away with being a little less scrupulous with diet. But if you have a known genetic predisposition, it just means that you're going to be more thoughtful about consumption and about cardiac exercise is so protective against the development of dementia. So sometimes these things like celiac disease, you have to be really thoughtful about your diet. And so I wouldn't wish these things on anyone, but sometimes it can actually be a blessing in disguise because you're using more discretion and you're keeping your body safe.
Yes, the only thing I would add to that is Yeah, first of all these studies showing that ApoE4 raises the risk for Alzheimer's, one, they're all done in eating people and who've been doing that to their arteries for years and years. But also, it's what that kind of diet does to our microbiome, tying that ubiquitous concept in again. But it turns out that it might be extremely important because I just read an article last week that the protein that accumulates into the brain, the beta amyloid that leads to the neurofibrillary tangles that lead to the classic Alzheimer's lesions and damage in the brain. Turns out everyone's thinking, well, it's coming from the pathology in the brain. Well, guess what? They've now identified bacteria in the gut that create beta amyloid. And the macrophages, the white blood cells in the gut lining, take up the beta amyloid made in the gut, and it gets transported up into the brain. What a thing! Who knew that protein might be coming from our gut bacteria? In which case, again, what are we eating? Because that determines the bacteria that live down in our gut. All the more reason to get the animal products and the dairy and the junk foods out of the diet, keep that microbiome as healthy as possible. There's a good chance that you won't be creating the beta amyloid in your gut that might increase the risk for Alzheimer's disease up in the brain there. So I, like Dr. Burns says, I don't think taking a statin, if your diet is otherwise whole food plant-based, offers any great advantage. But again, we can't be giving individual medical advice here.
They could always have a consult with one of the plant-based cardiologists if they
Indeed.
feel. So, and Rio's saying that the microbiome testing was done and it was good.
Good. Great.
I saw something about kidney disease, and it was someone whose son was 21 years old. One kidney was 4 centimeters, one was 8. Here it is. Diagnosed with kidney failure. One kidney is 4 centimeters, other is 8. Can he recover and be taken off PD? I guess that's dialysis.
Kidneys have an amazing ability to recover given the chance. One thing that's not the kidney's friend is a high protein diet. As people eat meat or use these protein powders, all these amino acids slam into the glomeruli, the filter membranes, and can injure the filter membranes, leading to chronic kidney disease. So the beauty of a whole food plant-based diet is there's got plenty of protein, but these are less acidic proteins, and they're released very slowly as you eat the beans, etc. It takes hours for those amino acids to get into the bloodstream, unlike meat or dairy products, where those amino acids just leap into the bloodstream and bang into the kidneys. And I've had numerous patients with chronic kidney disease whose kidney function has gotten better as they gone on a truly whole food plant-based diet. So the person should get on the whole food plant-based diet, avoid protein powders, etc., and other things that damage the kidneys, alcohol, etc. And yes, kidneys can recover some function, but to have a 4 centimeter kidney, that's clearly a shrunken, damaged kidney. And I can't sit here and say that magically things are going to restore back to normal. There's some serious kidney pathology there, and they have to work with their nephrologist. But a whole food plant-based diet is clearly the best diet for that, assuming it's not polycystic kidneys.
This was, at first I was worried because there wasn't a lot of questions that came in
Right.
through email. But boy, the minute you started, it was like the New York Stock Exchange. So we could definitely do this again if you want. There'll never be a shortage. Well, Dr. Burns, I know you had some final thoughts kind of on the big picture, if you'd like to share them.
Yeah, sure. I was thinking during this, I could bookend Dr. K's intro with the following. One big picture, I want to recommend that people check in with their doctor about their medications. So without challenging him or her and being obnoxious, because then the doctor will get defensive and it's just uncomfortable for everyone. But just checking in, hey, could you remind me what this medication is for? Sometimes people are on 10 or 15 or 20 medications. Doc, can you remind me what this medication is for? Okay. And then they'll tell you. And then you say, do you think I still need to be on it? And if so, then you can follow it up. Well, is there anything I can do to decrease the dose or to eventually wean off of it? Is there anything in my control? And you go through that with each of your medications. I think it can be powerful. There's a lot of inertia. So if your medication list, just, if it's like you're on these things and they just kind of stay there, they're like rocks. And doctors, myself included, sometimes we don't realize the impact of this stuff. I mean, to put someone on so many drugs, it doesn't feel good. I imagine for the patient, because they're reliant on this synthetic substance to be normal or to prevent this or that. You have to pay more at the pharmacy. It's inconvenient. You're worried about whether your refill will come on time. You have side effects. So just check in with your doc. And I think he or she would typically appreciate those questions. It's sort of like a med rec. It's an opportunity for the doctor to reevaluate, which we really should do every visit, to reevaluate exactly why, and if we need to be on those meds still. My other point was about sexual health. So there are a lot of us who think sexual health should be really a pillar of lifestyle medicine. It can be crucial for people's well-being. It doesn't have to be. Everyone's different, but it can be really relevant. And we're because we're not in the 1600s anymore, there shouldn't be as much taboo. And so I just like to encourage people to ask your doctor if you're having any erectile dysfunction or dryness or pain, or any issues that are impeding your ability to have a happy sex life. It's a health problem, and don't be embarrassed, because we've heard it before. There's no chance you're going to surprise us or wow us with your sexual dysfunction. We've heard it a million times, and we've heard a lot of wacky stuff. And so I just don't hold back. You can call and make an appointment specifically for that. If you don't want to tell the assistant over the phone, you just call it something else. But then we want to help. I really think that metabolically and psychologically, it's really crucial for a lot of people to have a functional sex life.
Beautifully.
Nice.
Last thing, just to put a cherry on Dr. Burns' Sunday there. If you are, I've had people get into all sorts of conflicts with their doctors about the medications, etc. Because as you get healthier, if you adopt a whole food plant-based diet, your need for blood pressure medicines, insulin, etc., are going to go down, and they need to be reduced and then discontinued. But you don't want to make the doctor feel that you're taking over your own medical care, whatever. So the best, most diplomatic way to do this to avoid confrontations is this, and we can leave a message with the office nurse saying, I've changed, I'm now on a healthier diet, and I'm probably going to be losing weight. I would like the doctor to work with me if these medicines become too strong for me, to work with me to reduce the dosage. That's all you have to say. You've given your doctor warning. It's in your chart. I'm eating healthier. It's all you don't have to say plant-based, don't say vegan. I'm eating healthier these days. I'm going to be losing weight. I would like the doctor to work with me to reduce my medications if they become too strong for me. That's all you have to say, and you'll keep your doctor on your team there instead of becoming an adversary. And your improvement in your health will teach the doctor something as well as you get healthier and don't need these medicines as much. The first step towards making them a plant-based ally, show them the power of a plant-based diet.
Thank you so much. We have so many wonderful comments. I hope people are enjoying this Q&A. Karen is saying that. Dixie is saying she loves the Q&A with the doctors. Recently we sent out an email to my mailing list asking them what they like to see from me, and Q&A with the doctors was number one. Me was number two. So you guys rock. Thank you for doing this. It was really very educational and a lot of fun, and it went just like that.
Yeah. Good one.
Had a blast.
Susan says, tell Dr. Clapper I miss him so much as my doctor. Well, Susan, he said he's going to start doing virtual again soon. So
Stay tuned. We'll let you know.
stay tuned. Thank you both so much. And thanks all of you for watching another episode of Chef AJ Live. Please come back tomorrow at 9 a.m. Pacific time for Dr. Peter Rogers. He's going to tell you how you can age better than your spouse.